There's a scary fact in the bar industry, and that's that roughly 85% of your unhappy customers never complain. They just stop coming back. And there are signs that we can look for. Your regulars are constantly communicating how they feel about your bar through their behavior, through their ordering patterns, through their body language. And you as an owner need to know how to read it. Otherwise, you could be quietly slipping and losing regulars and have no clue what's going on. Welcome to the Bar Business Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, the Bar Business Coach. And if you're tired of figuring out every bar problem alone, well, join Bar Business Nation, our free Facebook group for bar owners who want better ideas and real conversations. The link's in the show notes. Today on the Bar Business Podcast, we're covering why the feedback you need most is often never said aloud, the behavioral signals you need to watch for in your guests, how to build a listening system so that you can catch those signals and track them, and what to do when you have a problem. You know, it's real easy in this business to feel like you don't have any problems because no one's complaining. But silence doesn't always mean satisfaction. In fact, if we look particularly at younger generations, it's very true that they are not always the most likely to complain. They tend to be somewhat conflict avoidant. So no problems, no complaints can be very good. It can also mean these people are slowly slipping away. They're disengaging. In some cases, maybe they don't even care enough to tell you. And when that regular that used to come in 3 times a week is only now coming in once, that's a signal that something is going on. Now, it could be in that person's life, right? 1 regular does not make a pattern, but 10 do. And the bottom line here is that your regulars, they don't leave dramatically. They fade. But there are always signals we can look for before they fade away. And that's what we're talking about today. So the first thing I want to discuss here is why the feedback you need never gets said. And a lot of times it's because your regulars, frankly, they like you as a person. And complaining feels like confrontation. You know, a lot of us in our day-to-day life, we don't want to tell our friends the bad things we think about them because we are afraid that they will like us less. And a lot of times with regulars that you have good relationships with, the same thing is true. So what do they do instead of complaining? Well, they adjust their behavior. They come in less, they order differently, they leave earlier, they bring fewer people. Often by the time a regular says something directly, the decision to pull back has already been made. They're already doing this. Maybe they're not a regular anymore before they even tell you, right? A lot of people, you don't quit your job until you found the new job. You don't quit your bar until you found the new bar. That happens. And the bottom line, to return to that statistic I put in the open, 85% of unhappy customers are never going to leave you any feedback. They're going to stop returning. And your regulars, yeah, you might have a relationship with them, but it's no different. So what are the behavior signals we can look for to try to understand this? Well, visit frequency drop is a huge one. Now, again, one person that was coming in 4 times a week that now comes in 2 times a week doesn't necessarily mean much. Maybe they were single and now they're in a relationship. Maybe they're saving money for a family vacation. Maybe they had a kid. There's all sorts of possibilities. But when you see that over weeks, over multiple regulars, now we're seeing a problem that we need to solve. Another behavioral signal we can look for is an order change. So sometimes people change what they order, right? But the guy that comes in all the time and gets buckets of beer and now starts having, instead of a bucket, 2 or 3, that's a sign. Now, again, maybe that guy is just trying to drink less. But again, if we see this across multiple people, it might be a problem. The third thing that we should be looking at is dwell time. How long are people staying? You know, if you're in one of those situations where you're going, oh yeah, we have a packed happy hour, but 2 years ago, everybody came in at 4 and they stayed till 6, and now they come in, 4:30-ish, they have a couple drinks and they're out by 5:30. That's an indication something is wrong. Dwell time shows how connected they are, how much they're enjoying your establishment. Now, a big one, and one that's often overlooked, who are they bringing in with them? A real promoter of your business is going to constantly bring guests in with them. They're going to bring in their friends. But when someone that used to bring in their friends stops bringing their friends, that's often a sign that they don't trust you to give their friends a great experience. And so you need to watch who are my regulars bringing in. And the last sign to watch for is how are they on arrival? Are they lighting up? Are they happy? Do they seem excited to be there? Obviously, everybody has good days and bad days. No regular that comes in 4, 5, 6 times a week is going to be happy every time they walk in the door. Right? Other things go on in their life besides just going to the bar. But if you notice a shift in energy where that person was always the happy-go-lucky person and now they don't seem quite as happy-go-lucky, yeah, it could be external. It could also be related to your bar. So it's worth considering and investigating. So if we're watching for all those things, and if you notice each one of those in and of itself is a little wishy-washy. All of those could have factors from inside your bar or factors outside your bar. None of those, if only one individual is doing it, is a sign of anything. So we need to build a system that we can listen to these signals. Now, the great part about this is it doesn't require software, surveys, formal processes, but it does require constant attention and a habit of noticing what you observe. And so the simplest version of how to measure this is if you have a manager log, which you should. That's a conversation for a different day, but you should have a manager log where you write notes. One of those sections could be regulars worth checking in with this week. Because again, I see this pattern in one person. I want to go talk to them. I want to understand what's going on. And it should be there, right? This isn't a complete log. This is a proactive flag, but it's saying this person's behavior changed. We need to check in on them. And guess what? If it has to do with your business and it's something you can fix, great. But also, just say that regular had something bad happen in their life or a change in their life that has changed their behavior in your bar. By noticing it and checking in with them, it shows just how much you care. So even if it has nothing to do with you, the same process is going to build better connection with your regulars and involve your staff on this. And it can be as simple as just telling your staff, if a regular seems off tonight, or you notice something different about them, their visit about them, let me know, right? Yeah, I'm going to write that down in the book, but maybe I just go over to the table and I just talk to them. By noticing when people are off, again, it's providing you an opportunity to provide a great experience. Now, one thing you should absolutely know is you should know all your top regulars. And your team should know all of their top regulars, right? Not every bartender is going to have the same regulars. They should know about their lives, know about who they usually come in with, know what they drink. But you have to go a step beyond that. Just knowing your regulars is one thing. You have to recognize them, make them feel seen, make them feel heard. And you do that by not just knowing their name and their drink, but by knowing a little nugget about their life. This way, you can build that connection. You can become more personal with them. And that pulls them into the experience and keeps them as your regular longer. It also makes it so that when their behavior changes slightly, you're aware, you know, because you know them. And that allows you to give a better experience than anybody else around. So what do you do if you see some of these signals? The first thing is what I've just talked about. You check in with your regular. And this isn't like a, hey, I noticed you started coming in so much. What the fuck's going on? Right? You're not going to push them like that. But, maybe, hey, I haven't seen you as much lately. How have things been? Is everything good? Again, we don't want to have an agenda that we assume something's wrong about our bar. We want to have an agenda that we notice a difference in them and we're reaching out and we're trying to build that personal connection. Now, if it is something about your bar, oftentimes with regulars, it's something really small and fixable. A service slip they didn't mention, a change in their schedule, potentially a change in your schedule and who works when and who they want to hang out with. It could just be a time they came in and it just felt off to them and things didn't quite go and nobody said sorry. But if you can identify what that cause is, whether it's you or something in their life, at a minimum, you can show them that you care. You can build an emotional connection. And in a scenario where it has to do with your bar, you can fix it. You can work to repair where that relationship was broken. Of course, if you don't know where it's broken, that's kind of impossible. So you have to talk to them. You have to have that conversation so you can address the issue. And one thing I think is really important here to point out, a lot of people get afraid to ask questions like that because, yeah, maybe it's bar related. Maybe it's personal life related. Maybe you're going to end up in some story about somebody's dog or a family issue or something really tragic that's slightly uncomfortable. As a bar owner, it's sometimes your job to live in that uncomfortable space. But what almost never happens is that you have a guest that is annoyed that you asked. Because you're just reaching out, it says you see them, that they matter, and they're not just money. It builds a stronger relationship. And maybe, heck, it's something to do with your bar that they don't like that changed and you can't repair the relationship. That happened. But at least you showed them that you care. Now, obviously, if you're reaching out to guests and we're tracking when we see these patterns, we need to track these conversations. Now, that does not mean when someone tells you personal stuff that you should be writing their personal life story in your manager guide or your manager log, right? That's exactly what we don't want to do. But we might mark, hey, I talked to them. This is a personal thing. They'll probably be in more later in the future, but expect them to not be around as much. If it's a personal issue, I wouldn't even write down what it is personally, because I just think that's weird. But I would note it. I would make sure other people were aware of it, especially when you have a regular that's going through a highly emotional time in their life. Having your staff be aware of that so that you can show some deference to them, show them a little bit more grace is going to work in your favor. The bottom line here is that your best regulars are your most valuable assets, and they're your most reliable feedback source. But you have to know how to listen. And in this case, listening is not hearing their complaints. Listening is watching their behavior for changes. Listening is picking up on the subtle cues they give you, and then being genuine, open, and human, and asking them what's going on. If it's something about your bar, you fix it. If it's something about their life, you commiserate with them. Either way, you're strengthening that relationship, you're building a better regular, and your business is set up for long-term success.
That about wraps it up for today. If you're tired of sorting through bar problems by yourself, Come join us inside Bar Business Nation. It's our free Facebook group for bar owners and operators talking about what's working, what's not, and how to make the business easier to run. Search Bar Business Nation on Facebook, and I'll talk to you next time.